I think people need to realize life is hard, things are difficult, and you have to choose your hard. Marriage is hard, divorce is hard. Which one do you want?
He was not in a good headspace whatsoever at that time. And people often ask us, like, how did that work out? And it was just a meant to be thing that we started in divorce in a really, really bad space. And now we're worked our way into a honeymoon phase. So
it works out better that way. It took me a while because I wasn't in a good space anyway. So I had lack of trust. I had no empathy. I didn't care, I mean, once I started having feelings for her, it was one of those, wow, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening to me. I have these funny emotions in my heart. And I don't know what to do with them. It was a feeling from the past, feeling good and happy again. And it was just a little taste. And so I wanted more of feeling good. And that's when she started throwing every modality of healing at me, and I just kept going.
Yeah.
In today's social media obsessed world, we all see the successes, the world record breaking, and the achievements of the people we look up to. But what we don't see is what goes on behind the scene. Hosted by power couple Dean and Alana Stott, this show is dedicated to asking difficult questions while discovering the support systems and people behind those we love and respect in media, business, athletics, and high-performance culture. Dean and Alana believe that through honest communication, teamwork, and mutual respect, that anything is possible.
Like, there's not a better partner I could choose who's equally as crazy as me, because we have a chip on our shoulder to prove people wrong, and to prove ourselves right.
I can go be the face of this. I can go do this, but I don't understand the back end of this. I have to learn business. I have to learn how this works.
Many couples in this dynamic are stuck and unable to move forward in an identity crisis.
Marcus's energy is so bad. I feel like I need to cleanse my house. It's suffocating. And then seeing him 24 hours later, he was as light as air. Yeah.
And we literally embraced, hugged. I stepped back and I said, this is exactly what the guys need.
When we can look behind the scene and learn from each other, we can finally move forward and transform into our fullest potential.
Tom, Jen, thank you so much for joining us today. I know this isn't our first attempt. I think there's been a couple of attempts before, which speaks volumes on our diaries. That we are, we're busy, but you guys are equally as busy. I follow you guys on social media and see you just bouncing around the bazaar. So pleased you managed to make it work. So thank you for
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
We were even here an hour ago, and then we realized we were wrong.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry about that.
No, I did bad math.
Up his math.
We were like 10 minutes later. I'm like, well, all right. And then we looked at the calendar. It was like, oh, we're early. We're way early.
I had the one.
That time zone stuff.
Yeah, well, America, it's 3 time zones. Obviously, we're in Pacific. Where are you guys at the moment?
We're central.
Yeah, central.
Which he thought we were mountain.
So +2.
Which is why we were an hour early.
Yeah.
How funny.
I never know.
I made a mistake. I arranged a call with a good friend in South Africa, and he texted me at 01:30 in the morning. He said, "Are we on this call?" I was like, "No." So I still need to get my head around the calendars. But no, thank you from both Alana and I. And obviously, behind the scenes, a new concept. Do you guys know much about the show?
Just what we've read that you've put out. So love to hear more.
Yeah. So behind the scenes came, and I'm sure, Jen, you'll completely understand this concept, that I spoke to so many people in the world that we live in that have the one person who's out there doing the thing, and the world sees them, the world sees what's going on, and there's always somebody behind the scenes doing everything else and just making it work and keeping it going. Often that person has had to sacrifice a lot and put a lot of their own things on hold to make things happen. And the more and more people I spoke to about it, the more I was like, there's a story here, because first of all, it takes a certain type of person, but also to make it work between the both of you. It's hard work, and there's a lot goes into it. And the show really does center around couples, but not just in the husband-wife. We could have managers and talent. We can have there's been a number of different things, but we definitely find that the same things are coming out with each person with each couples that we're speaking to. So we're really excited to hear your story, how you began, and how it's kind of developed along the way. And so that is the premises of the show. So hopefully we can learn something about you both here.
Yeah, see how it works, because as Alana said, there's the person that the world sees, but they wouldn't be in that position. They wouldn't be able overachievers if it wasn't for that support network and that team. So that's why I'm excited to have you guys on. And probably to start with you, Tom. So obviously we're from the UK. We live here in America, but our actual audience is 50-50, probably from the US and also Europe. So here in the US, probably a lot of people would have heard about yourself, Tom, but not so much in Europe. So if you could sort of tell us about yourself, and we'll start from there.
Yeah, Jen will get all the credit for starting the foundation. I'm the guy out front that everybody thanks for doing stuff. So I just, thank you, you're welcome. So, I started out, I did 25 years in the military. I did 20 in Delta. And I took that experience and let it kill me. It was literally taking my life, and I was trying to live on. I started out in Indiana, a small country boy. I didn't have any aspirations to go anywhere until one of my friends joined the Army. And, I was like, oh, you're crazy. You're stupid. And then he got out of basic training, came back, and literally was telling me all about it. And I thought, I'll never get out of Indiana if I don't go now. So I spent my first 3 years in Germany and loved it, and that took me on that path to the Green Berets. That took me on that path from there to the unit. And then that took me up on retirement to Amman, Jordan, where I was training there for a couple of years. And then that's when I tanked. I literally tanked when I ran out of things to do. I ran out of a tribe, and I was just all by myself, seemingly, right in my own head, watching TV, all night long and sleeping all day, just kind of a miserable reverse cycle life. And then I started contracting, just on the side, trying to make some money. And that's when I met Jen. And that's when everything changed, that someone behind the scenes going, stop what you're doing. It's not normal. I'm like, well, I thought it was normal. She's like, no, nobody likes that shit. So turned into an awakening for me. And that's where she comes in with the behind the scenes and just helping so many people based off of how screwed up I was.
Yeah.
I love that the concept of the show is behind the scene, and we went straight into asking about you, Tom. It's funny how that goes.
I want to give the listeners a bit of a backstory for Tom, because I read about Tom, and we come from similar backgrounds with Tier 1 Special Forces, and especially with what you're doing now is why you are doing what you're doing with the All Secure Foundation. It's you obviously, I read about you, and you're very humble. That's very much a core value of the Tier 1 Special Forces is humility, and he's very quickly just brushed over an amazing career in the military. He's like, yeah, I did this, that, and sort of just brushed over it. But I recently watched the podcast with you, so most of our viewers will know Black Hawk Down, and you were there that day, and that's probably just one of thousands of missions that you've been on. And so your journey, when you said you got to a point where you didn't, you want to help other veterans, do you feel that it's because your time in the military, you didn't have an opportunity to vent, or there wasn't a foundation similar to yours out there that you could talk to someone? Because I can relate to that. What you went through is an identity crisis. You've gone from doing what you love with like-minded individuals, some of them passing, some of them dying along the way, to now, where is my role? What is my role within society? Where do I fit? And I think that's a common theme, especially in the Special Forces. So I just wanted to let the viewers know that this guy is actually a legend in the Tier 1 community. And he's literally just brushed straight over it. So it's that history and those operations that you've been on that got to a point in life where you thought, where next?
And Jen, what was your life like before Tom?
Completely different. I talk about the pendulum switch, and I went from one world to a completely other world. I was working in that time in film and photography, but in the commercial world. So Nike and earbuds and fashion. So I was working in film and photography, but not until special operations did I have any experience with military whatsoever. So talk about two different worlds, from very artsy, liberal focused, art world, to going into the special operations community, and totally had my feet knocked out from underneath me in many ways.
I wanted nothing to do with it.
No.
And were you guys?
It was not love at first sight.
Were you guys from the same area? Did you grow up in the same?
No, it was total happenstance how we met. He was working on a project and I was brought in to film it. So honestly, though, we met in the town he was born in, Seymour, Indiana, which is teeny tiny town. So
Smaller,
I guess maybe meant to be eventually.
Smaller than here.
Yeah, tiny.
And it wasn't love at first sight.
Oh, no.
God,
no.
I was overweight and ugly. I'm not beautiful like I was, then.
Yes.
Yeah, I was overweight and miserable. I looked up at her and I looked back, I don't know what I was doing. Sit on the couch, probably cleaning my weapon. I'm like, whatever, and they asked us if we wanted to go check out a haunted hospital over there in the corner. I'm like, no, I'm good, man. Thanks. And
yeah, I screwed up the entire first meeting anyway by calling him a seal. So I had, like I said, I had no clue.
Those pickup lines always work.
They were walking me down the hall to meet him, and they're like, this legend and Delta Force. And I didn't know what Delta Force was. Yeah. So he's like, he's the guy who was in Black Hawk Down and captured Saddam Hussein. They were going through all this stuff. I'm like, I go, so what? He's like a Navy SEAL? And they just stopped in their tracks and they turned around because they were all former unit guys.
Yeah.
And I got my first look and my first lesson
the
before I even met him.
The short answer could have been yes. But she was asking another unit guy who took offense. So
didn't start out great, but yeah.
I didn't know her.
Pardon. Yeah, no, I would understand that. We had, there was a furniture company in the UK called SCS. And when I met Dean, he told me he was in the SBS. So I was like, what, you sell furniture?
See?
Sometimes.
Yeah. So clearly she fell in love with me, not because of my job, but just because obviously probably the way I look. But yeah, so the SAS is the equivalent of Delta Force and the SBS is equivalent to the SEALs. And so I thought, I'm going to impress this girl and drop the S-bomb. And she goes, oh, so you move furniture? And I was like, great. So
that's even better.
I'm strong.
But I actually like that about it, that she didn't know anything about the military as well. You've probably heard the phrase frog hogs and things like that. Girls who seek out guys from Delta Force and the Navy SEALs. So yeah, she clearly wasn't one of them. But I bet Tom appreciated it though.
So how did they?
No, I said that. Yeah, I was not a hanger-on. I was not a fangirl. Yeah. I didn't care. I really didn't. I was like, that's cool.
Yeah, I saw her on LinkedIn after a friend of mine asked me if I'd seen that cute blonde girl. I'm like, no. So I saw the cute girl. I'm like, what, the Asian one or what? And he goes, no, the blonde. I'm like, there was a blonde-haired girl there, I was in a place where I didn't even, I didn't even want to talk to anybody, really.
Yeah, he was not in a good headspace whatsoever at that time. And people often ask us, like, how did that work out? And I don't know. It was just a meant to be thing that we started in divorce in a really, really bad space. And now we're worked our way into a honeymoon phase. So
it works out better that way.
Amazing.
Yeah. So stay here now.
And your kids, from previous, have you both got kids from previous relationships?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So first of all, then how did you actually fall in love? How did that come?
Slowly, I think, with friendship. We started working together. So I was brought on. Actually, I forced myself into special operations. I saw I said, why aren't you guys filming like everything you do in these really, really big realistic military training exercises? And I asked Tom, I said, do you guys have, camera people? He's like, yeah, that's combat camera. And they go overseas with us. And I said, well, they should be filming everything during training, because I had seen the little squirrel room down in the St. Louis Cardinals, their dugout area, where they would review all the footage and kind of asked questions about it. Thought it was fascinating. I said, you guys should do that, just play by play. So I kind of worked myself into a contracting job. for about 3.5 years, filming every iteration that his company had done. So we worked together. We became friends. I was going through a divorce. He was going through a divorce.
Good
so
times.
I think, yeah, we didn't meet like in the greatest time in either of our lives, which I kind of joke like my trauma was attracted to his trauma and my life situation wasn't exactly ideal, nor was his. So I think misery sought each other out at that time.
I was her handler on these targets, and I would make sure she stood in safe places and got the shot for the explosive charges and for the helicopters coming down. And I'd shove her in the back of a Chinook in the middle of the night. She's like, what's going on? Just sit down and don't worry about it, but take video. Made her do all these things she'd never done before. And I think I fell in love with her one day when she was filming a helicopter up above and her shirt flies up in the air and I grabbed it and pulled it down for her so she could take the shot. And I thought, she's pretty hot. I think I might chat with her a little bit.
Something like that.
That was fresh out of a Sealand container in the middle of the night. So that was a good moment to fall
I'm
in
sure
love.
I smelled wonderful as well.
That was maybe
She
the
smelled
attraction.
familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was familiarity, that's for sure.
Yeah. So you obviously met each other in a period of life, probably at your worst. So the only way there forward was to get better, which it's quite good because ours is slightly different. We probably met each other when I was at the peak of my career and in my life, and then I had a tragic injury, and then Alana then saw me at my worst. So she fell in love with the guy that was high on adrenaline and loving life, but then soon had to pick me up.
And I think one of the biggest things we hear, Jen, and you probably hear this all the time, is the kind of 95% divorce rate within the community. And I think I understood that because it was hard, when you're dealing with injury, PTSDs, traumas, anything like this. But I've never been one that walks away very easily, and I'm thinking that you might be the same.
Yep. Exact same. In fact, I bet you felt the same way, that if you would have exposed a lot of what was going on to people who had no experience in our world, the fear of run away, leave him, this is crazy, this is a toxic relationship. I could have even heard all of that at that time. I still wouldn't have left.
Yeah.
I'm the same as you. I'm like, nope, I'm digging in. This is my guy and we're going to figure it out.
I tried to make her leave me.
Literally.
Over and over again. I mean, I was horrible. So when she stuck around, I felt, when I met her, she was so nice. I remember thinking, what does she want? No one's been that nice ever in my life. And I'm thinking, when you're nice, you want something. That was where I was in life. And I kept thinking, what does she want? She wants something or she wouldn't be this nice.
Yeah.
Still here.
And I realized it was me
later.
she wanted. So
And when was that? When did that pin drop for you then, Tom? When was that turning point when you realized actually she isn't actually after anything? She generally, loves me.
maybe a month ago.
Oh, dear Lord.
No, it took me a while. It took me a while because I wasn't in a good space anyway. So I had lack of trust. I had no empathy. I didn't care. I mean, if you got yourself into a problem, it was your fault. I didn't care about it. So once I started having feelings for her, it was one of those, wow, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening to me. I have these funny emotions in my heart. I don't know what to do with them. And it was a feeling from the past, feeling good and happy again. And it was just a little taste. And so I wanted more of feeling good. And that's when she started throwing every modality of healing at me. And I just kept going.
Yeah. So he fell in love with me during transcendental meditation. What are you saying?
The guy
And
probably hypnotized me.
That's right.
I completely empathize with that. I think there was a specific period that for Dean and I, he was going hard at the get rid of her phase, like she needs to go. And I think for him, it was maybe she would be better off without me. So I'm going to do everything I can to make her dislike me. And there's something that I've never been able to quite put my finger on, because I speak to so many couples, so many friends, so many girlfriends that do walk away at that point. And then they'll tell you that that's the point you should walk away.
100%.
What is it that made you stay? What is it that made you keep fighting?
I think, yes, your good looks and your charm. Sure, that was part of it. I think part of it is my grandmother, who I was really close to. I named my daughter after her. In fact, my grandfather had severe schizophrenia, and this was back in the 1950s. And there wasn't really a diagnosis for schizophrenia. They didn't really know what it was. So he was in and out of city hospitals, couldn't hold down a job, extremely abusive to my grandmother. But my grandmother stayed through it all. She never once threatened to leave him through his illness, through any of the craziness. And then when his schizophrenia in his late 60s had settled and he had come back, essentially, that's the grandfather that I knew. He was normal. There was no trace of schizophrenia left in him. But my grandma would tell me, when you love someone and they're your soulmate, you fight for them. And just like I watched her fight for him, I think maybe part of it's in my blood. Maybe it's part of watching a really strong woman fight for someone that society didn't understand. And certainly everyone told her to leave him. So I think I've always had that little bit of Celeste in the back of my head when times got really tough. Like, I can fight for him. She did this. I can do this.
And from the guy's perspective, what do you think you were hoping for there?
I'm just listening to Tom, and I can sort of relate to a lot of things he's saying. The jobs that we used to be in, it's quite selfish. You have to sort of leave everything behind because you can't be distracted with what's going on at home as well. You need to be totally disconnected with society, and just look after your teammates. So it is a very selfish environment to grow up in. And then when we do leave, we're not used to this sort of empathy or someone else looking out for us. We're used to our teammates looking out for us. So it's hard for us to transition, and it's hard for us to trust people. The only people we trust are our teammates, those that have done selection. They're the only ones Alana used to ground me when I left the military. I was like, civilians, they don't understand. They can't tell the time. All this sort of stuff as well. But actually then realize that no, there are some amazing civilians out there with the same mindset, drive and passion as well. I just think it's because I don't want to say indoctrinate or institutionalized, but because we have been in for so long, we are institutionalized, and you said it with me in business as well. I actually came out and was like, oh yeah, surely we can trust these. Like, no, the world of corporate is very different from the world of the military. And so it's hard to if we had the answer, we'd be able to, sell this to every veteran out there. Everyone's transition is slightly different. Everyone experiences different things. And sometimes people experience the same things, but people react differently to that. I've been in situations where some of my friends have really bad PTSD and that hasn't affected me as much. So for us I don't know we're on a ticking bomb. I think we just missed that drive, adrenaline, that camaraderie. And then we struggle then to take on another tribe. It's like, well, I want to be in that tribe. Well, you can't be in that tribe anymore because you're too old, you're injured, or something else. Yeah. But there's actually a tribe here. And it took me a while to realize actually the tribe I was looking for was actually sat next to me. So looking at everywhere else. So I didn't even answer your question.
You didn't.
But I just sort of
I like it though. So good.
Where Tom
it's like
and
a politician.
and other veterans sort of are coming from.
But it's very funny that Jen said, because mine was my great auntie Molly. She died a couple of years ago at 95, an amazing woman, but she was exactly the same. She was like, people give up too easily now. She was very much of that mindset. And I remember her telling me that. And I think, no, I'm not. And it was, for me, like, it was about me. I'm not giving up. Like, I've put into this. I've married into this. I'm doing this. So I'm not giving up because I've seen the good. And even if the good was only 20% of the time at this point, I know I can make this come out again. We just have to work at it. So I think that not being afraid of hard work could probably be a big part of it.
I agree.
I think people need to realize life is hard. Things are difficult, and you have to choose your hard. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Which one do you want? There's both paths are hard. And another thing Jen brought up the other day, actually, we were talking about it. She's like, military people think it's us versus them. It's us and them, us and civilians. When actually the military was just a subset of civilians, just like being doctors or a lawyer. They have their own little tribes. We all pitch in. Yeah. So the biggest problem with veterans getting out is one, thank you for your service, put me on a stage. And so you start feeling like I'm still up here. I'm still on stage. I still, I'm a VIP or something. And then you realize no one cares what you did. Unless you're doing something for them, they don't give a shit what you did for a living. And you certainly don't walk around and tell them, so they don't know. We've got generals out that 4-star generals that get out and go to Home Depot and get yelled at by, people that want them out of line and out of their way. And there's no respect there. So you start realizing, I've lost my identity. And you need to realize then that I got to have the awareness, the self-assessment, and then believe it, and then make a plan and get to work. And most of us choose the easy path of, run away or hide it. And it is easier, but it ends up getting harder, in the end anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that divide could be tough between. It's a tough thing that's put on you guys. Frankly, I think about is military, and then all others. Like there's military, and there's that tribe, and then there's the whole rest of the world that's civilians. I'm like, how does that make any sense whatsoever?
Yeah,
it's just a complete divide that doesn't need to be there.
And your friendship group, Jen, at the time were they completely alien to the military world as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I think
they're
Tom
gone.
came to the first party I took him to or something, and he's cracking military jokes, and I'm in the corner wide eyed,
and this
not
was
here.
This guy, and his head exploded, and his arm came off, and they're all like, "What?"
Not,
and I'm like,
not the
wait,
right
what?
audience.
I'll tell that different story now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they were very confused, very, very confused. What are you doing? Why are you going out with those guys? Isn't it dangerous? What about your kids? There was every single level of criticism, critique,
But
misunderstanding.
There was also, you're so lucky. You get to go hang out with those Navy SEALs, and they all got nice abs. And so she's like, it's not like that. It's not like that. But that's their version of, TV Navy SEALs. Is Rob Lowe there or whatever, So it's one of those.
There were a few.
Envy and then disgust.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy transition for me at all.
And most people they'll deny transitions tough. Everybody, I got this. I have a plan. We've saved up money. I'm like, it's more than just physical things.
Yeah.
It's mental things that you don't want to admit. You think, I'm mentally crazy. And I know it's a biological change in your body from what you've been through. Let's work back through that, like retraining. Nobody helped you shoot your gun. Nobody helped you learn CQB, or nobody helped you learn how to swim so well and put on that equipment. They taught you. So we do the same thing. We teach people when they're getting out how to integrate into society, how to communicate with their spouse, and how to not punch people in the face every day.
Yeah. It's that transition. Yeah.
And when Tom was going through the times that he was maybe trying to push you away, how were your friends responding to that? Were they supportive?
I have 3 friends that I could tell absolutely anything to. They completely are on my side, and they're more importantly on our side. So there's even times where I vented about Tom, and 100% they'll take his side and say, have you looked at it this way? But those are 3 people out of everyone that I feel that kind of trust and that kind of safety with. The other friends don't get access to all of that information.
Yeah.
They're not safe. And, doesn't mean I can't have a relationship with them. Doesn't mean I can't hang out with them, but they don't get the very deep sort of information of my relationship, because I know these type of people will bring judgment. They'll bring unsolicited advice. And it might end our friendship, quite honestly. I've tested the waters early on and kind of have learned who to trust, who to talk to about certain things. And I think it's so critical as a spouse to have that person that you can go to, that you trust, that you can kind of bare your soul, but also be guarded enough not to spew your dirty laundry to people that shouldn't have that information.
Yeah. And I do like what you say, that you can't always go to the yes man. You can't always go to the person who's just going to agree with everything that you say. And I think I've definitely not lost friends, but definitely distanced myself from people who are just like, leave him. He's horrible. I've got some probably the same. I've probably got I've probably got the 3 core friends who are like, okay, I understand that. That's hard. I don't know how you can deal with that, but this is what I would maybe advise. He's actually right about this. You're maybe doing this. Okay. And that's really important to have. I think it's easy to surround yourself with people who will just agree with you all the time and who will be on your, like, to have somebody who will actually question you and be, no, actually, he's right. I mean, he's never right. So I don't even know where that circumstance comes from. But
you said it.
It's on a recording too. You're in trouble.
Say you're all smug and I'm still here. And you've touched on it just briefly then, Tom, about your transition program. That's part of the All Secure Foundation. Can you share more about that and where that started from?
Yeah, Jen started that by sitting on target night after night, weeks at a time with Navy SEALs and waiting for the guys to hit the target. You know, your Green Berets or SEALs and some Rangers, and sitting around that hot warehouse waiting, and people start talking to her. You know, there's SEALs there, or there's SF dudes there, and like, hey, so what'd you do with Tom? He actually has teeth. I didn't know he had teeth, you know, and now he's smiling a little bit more. So what'd you do for him? You know, and so she starts sharing that. And then it was, how can you help me and my wife, you know, and how can you help us in our relationship? And then the people we train them, you know, right before they go off to war. So we're the last people they see, and we give them all of those, you know, the fake IEDs, everything that we've seen overseas, we throw at them. Yeah. And then they deploy, and then when they come back for another training cycle, there's people missing. And Jen would ask, hey, where's Bob? You know, well, he didn't make it. Where's Jim? Oh, he didn't make it either. And then people would die during training. She's like, people die during training? I'm like, all the time. It's like reality. You know, we take it to the next level. Yeah. And a SEAL died on one of the missions we were on, and it kind of hit her. And then one guy shared his marriage proposal ideas for his girlfriend coming up. And then that guy was supposed to take me and another person on a ride up to Virginia Beach. We decided to drive. Like at the last minute, we decided to drive. And then the helicopter crashed that night, killing that pilot who was, he saved the whole crew by flipping the helicopter on his side. And that was the guy that was going to propose to his girlfriend. And it hit her. And she's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to help people come home versus help them deploy. And so she got to work starting the foundation, figuring out how to do it. While I kept making food, you know, or making money so we could eat food.
You can make food. He's a good cook, actually.
I'll make food, but he's literally making money. The family. Yeah. And it, you know, we did that. It was born out of that. The need that people presented was help me at home. It wasn't, I miss all these people from war. It wasn't, I'm crazy or I'm angry, which they are, but it was help me at home. And how do we help people at home? We help them communicate better, not screaming and yelling. And hey, you go do this now. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And we help the warriors not freak out about the cup in the sink because it's not going to kill you. Everything we do is a reaction to what our training was, which was, if I don't get control of this now, it'll be chaotic and people will die. And that just go through your head. And so we break that cycle, and we help them learn different techniques to behave and speak differently. We hold couples retreats. We're getting ready to hold one for 175 people coming up in another month, which is a big growth from 12 couples. We're taking a big jump. And then those are going to grow. So we speak at military bases as well to help the guys that are in not go so far down that rabbit hole. Hopefully someday down the road, they'll start tanking. They will. And then they'll think, oh, I heard something one day. Maybe I can go get some help before this gets too bad. So we're trying to hit them while they're in, before they get too bad. And we're hitting them when they come out. It's easy for them. They go to allsecurefoundation.org and hit request a coach button.